Norman was excited when he got a call back to work at the Lacroix building. It was the first thing that people who weren't from Furlong remembered about Furlong. No one outside of the city knew that the Lacroix building was a place where most media was produced. Sure, when it was ready for a shiny sheen of paint and polished, the nuts and bolts of the finished projects were filmed in Formico Studios. But all the big ideas had come through this building before it became anything that the public would see. Norman sat in a conference room of this iconic building, waiting to be acknowledged. But he had been there so long, the thrill of a new job was becoming overridden by feelings of boredom. The room he sat in was innocuous and had the identity of any waiting room. There was a drab uniformity to the place that made it unsettling. Norman sat in a black leather lounge chair. Instead of fiddling with his phone, he reached for a magazine on the table. He made a loud scrunch on the letter when he leaned forward. There, he found an architectural magazine which had the Lacroix building prominently displayed. He read an article about the building just from the lack of other stimuli in the room. Of the 72 stories of the building, the last 20 levels on the top windows was a huge monitor. Being from Furlong, Norman knew that much. Anyone could see the Lacroix building playing a movie scene or featuring a nature clip from miles away. This week featured an exotic aquarium. Norman found an even lesser-known fact that the Lacroix building was a gift from Ballister Lacroix to his betrothed, Delphine Osterberg. Being from Furlong, he knew of the Lacroix and the Osterbergs, which was considered the marital merger that brought the city back to life after it was hit by an economic downturn. He breathed out and looked around while tossing the magazine back on the table. Some people considered this level of isolation a form of torture, and he was beginning to see why. Suddenly, an old bald woman appeared from nowhere on a screen that had been white-walled just a moment before. Norman jumped at the sudden appearance of a face out of nowhere. "Are you Norman Everman?" said the old, smooth-shaven, bald woman in the black turtleneck. Yes, I am," Norman said defensively. The way her camera leaned and stretched, one might assume she was FaceTiming while walking around. At times, her eye would become big, moving forward, or she would be further away. "I looked at your credentials and you are an acceptable match for the job position," she said dryly while her eye became larger on the monitor. "You may report to your immediate superior now so that you might get a jump start on what we require of you." "Okay," Norman said, happy to have gotten a job, but taken off guard that it was starting immediately. "Follow me, Norman," said the abrasive bald woman who must have been in her 70s or possibly even 80s. Where are—" Another monitor appeared and Norman began to understand that he was meant to follow the breadcrumbs. Norman got up and began to march at a brisk pace. The woman turned her camera to the side to simulate that she was walking beside him. A secret door slid open that he did not at first see that led Norman down a hallway he hadn't suspected was there. He began to struggle to keep pace with the rapidly appearing monitors that popped up sporadically throughout his trip. There were somber but extremely busy people who had their phones out in front of them, speaking as if they were doing live streams or speaking to people, but because of how fast they were moving, he couldn't quite make it out. "Hey, excuse me," Norman said to the old woman, whose face turned back from the screen to face him, then centered to be face to face the moment he caught up. "I didn't even get your name, miss," Norman asked. "My name is Delphine Osterberg. Do keep up. I can't stand a young man with low constitution," she said, apathetic to Norman's problem. Her monitors began bouncing on to new monitors until they reached an elevator at the end of the hall. Norman was walking so fast it fell more into running. When the elevator door opened, a monitor appeared behind him. It was as if the old woman's eye were bearing down on him, even though he was unsure how much she could see of him. "We move fast here, Norman. Listen to your superiors and be ready to pitch at any time. Even the best ideas can come from the lowliest people," said Delphine. Norman took a moment to catch his breath before asking, "Delphine Osterberg? Are you kin to the Delphine Osterberg that revitalized the city?" The old woman smiled slightly. "You know your history. I like that," she said without answering. "Now, remember what I said and you'll go far." The elevator doors opened and a man was standing there with his arms behind his back. Norman Everman?" he asked.
"Yeah?"
"Follow me," said the man. Norman began to walk behind the man briskly. "Have you ever?" the strange man was about to say before another man came jogging down the hallway with papers spilling from his hands.
"I quit. I can't do this anymore. I don't know what else you think you can take from me."
Suddenly, from a previously unseen sliding door came two faceless security guards dressed in black. The man spun and ran towards Norman and the man he was following, papers flying all over the place as he dashed to the slowly closing elevator. Behind the two security guards was a man in an all-black poncho chasing them with a professional camera hiding his face. Norman leaned on the wall to get out of the man's way. The man yelled maniacally at Norman, barely stopping to address him. "Get out now! Get out now before you start making pitches! Just get out!"